Hello, YouTubes. Welcome back to Workshop Wasteland. Just wanted to pop in here today and do a bit of a formal introduction, bit of a shop tour, show you some of the modifications to the equipment that I've done, and overall just kind of show you what I'm working with. So, formal introduction. My name's Jared. Like I said, the name of this channel, Workshop Wasteland. I chose that name because obviously this is a workshop, and to many people, this would be an absolute wasteland. I'm not an organized person. I don't do well with organization. A little bit about me: I'm in the Air Force, active duty. I'm a mechanic in the Air Force, and anybody that knows anything about the aviation industry, it is extremely organized. Every tool has a place, every part has a home, and to some degree, if my workshop were organized in that way, I would kind of feel like I never left home. So I decided to get comfortable working in truly the opposite. And as you'll see as we go around for a bit of a tour, I have a lot of crap in a small space. But it truly works for me. I know where things are. If someone came out here and organized it, I'd be forever upset because I couldn't find anything. So, hence the name Workshop Wasteland. Like I said, I am in the Air Force. I've been in the Air Force for 15 years at the making of this video. So, I'm coming up on retirement and hope to continue this YouTube journey. I've really had a pretty good time making the videos that I've made already, and really I'm just trying to share the things that I'm already working on in my workshop to begin with. So why not just turn the camera on and show you some of the cool stuff that I'm doing. I'm not really a video editor. I'm sure I'll get better with time, but everybody started their journey somewhere, and I'm starting mine here, and we can only go up from here together. I'd encourage all of you guys, if you're doing fun stuff in your workshop, tinkering on cars, fixing bicycles, repairing paper airplanes, whatever it might be, turn the camera on, talk to it a bit, put the information out there for folks to see, because there's a niche for everybody, and we're all doing things that are interesting to someone else, and we could all learn together. That's kind of my main focus here, is learning together. I by no means know everything, never will ever claim to know everything. I'm really just a beginner machinist, kind of a hobbyist, if you will, but I'm having a blast turning metal, playing with the lathe, doing some heat treating. As you'll see, I have some smaller tools, but they've really, really served me well. So again, I encourage you, if you're doing something interesting or exciting, please, by all means, turn that camera on, get your own channel started. Let's share some cool information together. Without further ado, let's walk around the workshop a little bit. I'll show you some of the things that I'm working with, the modifications that I've made to make them better suit me. And I think we'll start over with the 3D printers, because I've really come to like them, and I found a lot of ways to incorporate them into the things that I'm doing here in my little home shop, machine shop. As I said, let's start over here with the 3D printers. So this is a bit newer version of that printer. This is an old school Ender 3 Pro. I'm running a program called Octoprint, which is practically antiquated technology at this point, but it does work really well. It gives you a lot of control on a computer versus having to do every kind of adjustment or tweak right here on the display. Effectively, you don't even need this display anymore, but that's an Ender 3 Pro. I've had that thing for probably the better part of 10 years. It served me extremely well. Many upgrades to it. Prints really, really well, but it's extremely slow in comparison to today's 3D printers. This is an Ender 3 S1 Pro, a much newer version of that printer, but still nothing really fancy. They make a lot of those enclosed cabinet style printers, which are much faster. As you can see, there's no enclosure around this. Your print is being formed right here on this build plate. But this is running this new program called Clipper. That's all on this pad right here. And way faster, definitely prints equally as well, but in probably a third of the time. If you're interested in seeing or hearing more about my 3D printers, I'd love to share more about them, but I'm not sure that everybody's interested in these older printers at this time. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just old technology at this point. There's definitely much, much better places to spend your money nowadays. But I'll happily make some videos about some of the upgrades and modifications that I've made to these if folks are actually interested. Switching over to another one of my all-time favorite hobbies. As you can see, that's quite a few chainsaws on that shelf. Every single one of those chainsaws, with the exception of this Echo saw right here, have been completely stripped down and totally rebuilt, and some of them modified quite a bit. But I plan on making some chainsaw content here in the future. I have a few projects in mind, some cool things to show for folks that maybe haven't really ever tinkered with small engines, or more specifically with chainsaws before. But as you can see by the shelf, it's definitely something I enjoy. I think I have about 15 or 16 saws here. They all run great. Like I said, some are modified, some are bone stock, but they all kind of have their own individual purposes, and a couple of them are a bit special to me for sentimental reasons. But otherwise, like I said, chainsaw is definitely something I enjoy tinkering with. Really, just small engines in general. I tinker with that kind of stuff a lot. So, like I said, a few videos in the future with some upcoming content on some saws. The first machine that I have for the machinist workshop, if you will, is one of these Benchtop mini mills. So this is the same thing as what Harbor Freight sells. This one is not branded by Harbor Freight, but it's really truly the most identical thing that there is to it. So everything that I'm showing you on my machine, you could do to yours if you have the same Harbor Freight machine. First and foremost, I use this little, I think they call this a toolmaker's vise. I really like this vise a lot. I have like a Kurt style knockoff, overseas special knockoff vise. I don't hate it, but I like this one better. It seems more accurate. I feel like I can clamp parts better in there, and it's not nearly as big. It doesn't take up as much of the table space, so I like this one a lot. Next improvement would be, this is a stepper motor controller that controls a stepper motor down here. This stepper motor, of course, is only for the X-axis to move back and forth, but it does do really nice for like a power feed setup. And I plan on breaking some of this stuff down in a future video, but for now, just a bit of an overview. Up here, I did the servo motor upgrade kit. Made a bit of a video previously on this. It's from servomotorkits.com. That is a fantastic upgrade. The motor that was on this thing before at slow speeds, you could just grab the spindle and stop it, no problem with your hand. This thing now, turned all the way down on low speed, if you grabbed a hold of this, you'd break your wrist. It appears to be totally max power, even at the slowest speed, which is huge because these machines don't like to spin real fast whenever you're taking cuts with, say, like a boring bar or something, or drilling a larger hole, let's say. So whenever you were trying to do that with that other motor, it would just stall out and overload and then shut off, and it got really frustrating. So that motor up there, probably the second best improvement that I've made to this machine. This is my own version of Little Machine Shop's gas piston support for the head to hold it up whenever you're cranking it up and down. If I could do it over again, I would have just spent the 50 or 60 bucks with Little Machine Shop and bought their kit. Mine's okay, it works, but it's kind of in the way, and I lost a little bit of travel that a few times I wish I had. So probably just buy the Little Machine Shop kit and be done with it. But easily, without a doubt, the best upgrade that I've made to this machine is this DRO setup. This is called Touch DRO. It's a totally free app. You can buy the module to make it work with I used eye gauging scales. You can't really see them in the video. This is one of the scales back here, the silver line that you see. But those scales are the magnetic scales, a lot like a digital caliper that you may have. And it works absolutely fantastic. Hands down the best improvement that I've made to the machine. I went the DIY route, which I have no regrets. I think it's cool. I got to build an Arduino project myself. Could probably do some more coverage on that in the future, but for now, if you want to check that out, I'll post the link to the website down in the comments. It's Yuri's Tools, and he's surprisingly made all of this like public information, which is really wild and super generous of him. Like I said, totally free app. That's just a cheap Amazon tablet. I think it was like $40. And you buy the scales and build the Arduino project, and you're off to the races. But you can also, on Yuri's Toys website, you can buy the Arduino module. This white box up there is where my Arduino is. You can buy his module, which is a all-contained unit. Everything just plugs in with USB cables. And if you're not a electronic savvy kind of person, that's probably the way to go. It's a fantastic product, and no regrets if you buy that, I'm sure. I also have the 2-speed belt setup up here from Little Machine Shop to get rid of those loud plastic gears that are prone to breaking. I don't think that's an absolute necessity, but whenever you break that gear, you're going to wish that you did the belt drive upgrade. So if you're not interested in spending the money on this belt system, buy an additional one of these plastic gears in there. If you have one, you'll probably never break that one. But if you do break it, you'll be really glad that you have a spare, because inevitably a plastic gear is going to break whenever you crash the machine trying to take too heavy of a cut. Moving over to the second machine here, this is a South Bend 9x36 lathe. I have quite a few attachments for it. 4-jaw, 3-jaw. I got a collet chuck setup that I made. I have a collet bar that will fit into the MT3 taper on that end. Couple different attachments for the tailstock, but overall, this is a 1930s era lathe. It's definitely seen better days, but it's still surprisingly accurate. It still works really well. Definitely missing some of the features that the newer, more modern machines have. Over here on this side right in there is where the change gears are. They're definitely a nuisance to change. It'd be really sweet to have a quick change gearbox of some sort and be able to just move a lever for threading and things like that. With that said, this is an extremely capable machine. I really can't complain one bit about it. I bought it from a friend who was generous to sell it to me, and I got a pretty good deal. So, like I said, zero complaints. It's a very capable machine. It'd be better if it were mounted onto a concrete floor, but here in my little workshop, the floor is just wood, and it struggles to keep it aligned. But again, I can make do with it, and I've turned out some very functional parts. So, South Bend 9x36, probably one of the best starter machines that there is, in my opinion. This is not so big that it takes up your whole shop, but it's not so small like a little Harbor Freight 7x14 or something like that. Those things are pretty tiny. I had one of them before this and very, very quickly outgrew it and wished that I had a bigger machine. So, my opinion on buying a lathe and a mill for that matter, space provided, buy the biggest machine that you can afford. And the heavier the better, as probably with any machine. If it's heavy, it's solid, and you're probably going to turn out a much better part because of that. Just going to walk around now, show you a couple of the tools that I have. That's just a Craftsman 6-inch grinder. One thing I will say, don't do what I did. This is a Harbor Freight. I think it's supposed to be a white aluminum oxide wheel, and it's absolutely trash. Spend the money, get a good wheel. You can blow through that thing in an afternoon, and it's truly junk for the money, especially. I think that was like $35, and it's absolutely garbage. This 6-inch bench grinder is really, really handy for sharpening tools on the lathe, and I've done some things on the mill with it as well. So go on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, find you a bench grinder like this. It doesn't need to be anything special. Having your little tables on there is definitely a bonus, and then you can build other attachments and things to make that work, but definitely worth having if you have a small machine shop like this. I'm going to be holding my phone now for the duration of the video, so sorry if it's a little shaky, but this is a 72-inch toolbox, Harbor Freight, packed full of Harbor Freight tools. You'll notice that a lot throughout my videos. I have nothing but good things to say about Harbor Freight tools. Uh, Coming from the aviation industry where Snap-on is pretty much what we use, in my opinion, Harbor Freight pretty closely compares to that. That's a subject for a whole nother video at a later date, but for now, just know I'm a big Harbor Freight supporter. Some of the creature comforts. Up there is a 220 volt electric heater. It does a great job of heating up my workshop. Got a refrigerator with some magnets and stickers on it. Got a decent air compressor. I also think that's kind of a necessity. Without a doubt, an air compressor comes in handy so often for many, many, many more things besides filling up bicycle tires and car tires. But definitely get yourself a decent air compressor and you won't regret that one bit. Moving over here to another bench, what you see here is a 2x72 belt grinder. Over here in this blue cabinet is a variable frequency drive for the 3-phase motor on this belt grinder. So it's variable speed from 0 to about 5,000 RPMs. As you can see back there, I got a whole bunch of different grits and styles of belts. I built this whenever I played around a bit with knife making. I still do make a knife from time to time. I'm sure I'll show some on the channel at some point. But I can't even express how handy this thing is. Anything from cleaning up a 3D print to doing some work with plastics, grinding metal, shaping tools, sharpening lawnmower blades. It's just infinite possibilities for what this thing can do. This was a laser cut kit. I actually built this whole thing. I got the plans for it, had a local laser cutting shop. I guess it was actually a plasma shop. They cut all the parts out. Then, of course, I had to assemble and do some welding, and I use it probably nearly every day. Without a doubt, I use it on every single project that I'm working on. So if you can get your hands on something along these lines, definitely a worthy purchase for your shop. This bright silver box in front of us is a ceramic kiln. As you can see right here, this digital display is a PID controller, and it's tied into the heating elements of the ceramic kiln. Right now I have a little light bulb in there keeping some chemicals from freezing because it's been pretty cold here and I didn't want this stuff to get ruined. But this is a fantastic heat treating oven. I think I got this for $100 off of Facebook Marketplace. Converted it over with this PID controller, which was actually a pretty easy and inexpensive project. Now I have infinite control up to about 2100 degrees. Heat treating knives and stuff was just super easy with this versus using the torch and kind of taking your best guess at temperature. So again, a heat treating oven is very useful for tool steels and things like that, making different cutting tools or whatever you need to do in your workshop, but definitely a solid investment there. I got this benchtop drill press before I got my mill, and it's really been a great unit. It's a lot solider than the newer, more modern equipment that you can buy. Um, as you can see, this is a benchtop model, but you can drop the table. You can drop this table all the way down to the base, so you could still drill something quite long if you needed to. Up top, it's got the adjustable pulleys to change the speed, which I don't really do very often, but pretty awesome drill press, actually. This is one of those things, if you can find you an older one, this says Cummins Mac on it, and it's a lot more solid, all cast iron, versus today, a lot of the more modern stuff is pot metal and aluminum and everything else. So if you can find you something like this that's old and better and more solid, again, probably won't be disappointed in that. This is probably the second most handy tool in my shop next to the belt grinder. This is one of those handheld bandsaws that I kind of cobbled together a base for. So now you have the blade here and you can cut something, on the table there. I have it tied into a foot pedal down there so you don't have to be reaching your hand back here and trying to get into a switch or something. We have this just foot controlled, which is awesome. Works really good for cutting stuff out and, getting down close to dimensions and things. A big perk that a lot of people don't think about in a little home machine shop like this, if you machine away all of the excess material into chips, it's totally wasted. If you use a saw like what I have, or even a hacksaw is a great way to go about it as well, which is much cheaper. But you can cut off a lot of what would otherwise be wasted by chips, and then you have some smaller pieces to use in future projects. So, not that there's anything wrong with machining it into chips, but you're just wasting it at that point. Unless, of course, you had a way to melt it down and turn it back into some ingots or something, which certainly most people won't have. But just thought I would say that this is actually a really great way to conserve materials. Obviously, you're most of the time ending up with small pieces, but you're not really wasting anything, and that's pretty huge in my opinion. So, of course, I got a bench vise. I had a small little Craftsman vise, which was a total piece of junk, and I bought this. This is a Doyle brand from Harbor Freight. I bought this pretty recently. 3D printed some jaws. You'll see that's a theme here. I do a lot of 3D printing for practical parts. So these are, like soft jaws. Obviously, they'll get ruined because they're just plastic, but it's literally pennies worth of plastic. And obviously, I can make more because I have printers. So this is a great vise. It's a lot more solid than I thought it was going to be, and I got it on sale, so definitely works well. Continuing on to the 3D printing theme here, these metal parts trays, as you can see, they used to be wire terminal kits. They come with these plastic dividers, which have this big open space on the side, which doesn't work well to divide up nuts and bolts. So I decided to take the Gridfinity approach and printed out all of these little dividers. Obviously, you can see some labels on there to label what I have. I like to use socket head cap screws where I can. I think they look the best. That's a personal preference of mine. You may feel differently. I now have metric like this. I have one for standard. Like I said, this was the Gridfinity system that someone created online, made it open source so we can all use it. And I took full advantage of that. I think this worked out great, and really you can't have too many nuts and bolts around your shop. Just to showcase some of the adaptability of 3D printing. So I mentioned earlier, this is like my power crossfeed setup. This mount right here is 3D printed. This definitely could have been made out of metal. Maybe it should have been made out of metal, but this was a open source design already on a website. All I had to do was download it and print it. Probably took about an hour to print this. It's been here for a few months. Works absolutely fantastic. Not saying that 3D printing is the best way to go about mounting stuff, but for the majority of the things that I'm doing, I think this is a wonderful way to do it. Up here, my controller, this is in a 3D printed enclosure. Again, could have been made out of metal, but what's the point? In this case, all it's doing is holding this so you can press the buttons. I mentioned that Arduino enclosure earlier. That's 3D printed as well. Again, no reason for it not to be. All of my tool holders over here for my lathe, they're all on a 3D printed rack. Down here, my little makeshift DRO for my tailstock, this end and this mount down here, again 3D printed. I 3D printed this gear right here. This is you can make this transposing gear, so I can cut metric threads with this machine. Obviously that gear is going to break at some point, but again, it's a few pennies to reprint it. This indicator holder right here has magnets in it. Snaps onto the triangular part of one of the ways here. Again, fantastic use of 3D printing. Easily could have made this out of metal, but I don't see the point in it. Not everything for 3D printing needs to be on a machine. I know this is a bit silly to some degree, but these marker holders are 3D printed. They snap into pegboard and they work well. I can walk right over, grab any of these markers that I need. I'm not fumbling around looking for them. And there they are. So again, 3D printing, in my opinion, is extremely useful in a workshop. And if you had a printer and started looking around at ways you can improve things that you're doing, I'd be willing to bet you would also agree that 3D printing is pretty awesome. And I think we'll end the video off over here with some more creature comforts. This is one of those Chinese diesel heaters that kind of blew up online, and to be honest, this thing is fantastic. It's extremely good on fuel, produces a ton of heat, has no problem heating up this workshop, which this is 12 by 24, no insulation anywhere besides the ceiling. So plywood and siding is all that there is for insulation, and this does a fantastic job of keeping this comfortable where you can be out here in a t-shirt or whatever. Also put a window air conditioner in. Again, does a great job of cooling it off in the summertime, which our summer here in South Carolina is a lot longer than the winter is. So an air conditioner is an absolute must. One last creature comfort that I have, and then a bit of advice. I have a pretty nice PC out here. I've been using it for what little bit of video editing I've been doing. Obviously, you can see right now I have a YouTube video going. And really, a computer is kind of a necessity. You can look stuff up, watch somebody else's video if you're stumped on something, but a good computer, well worth the investment. And then a bit of advice. I know this is probably not going to look real good in frame, but as you can see, I have a lot of lighting in here. And maybe this is a bit overkill. However, I think the lighting in my videos looks pretty darn good, and I'm never really having to like use flashlights and things whenever I'm looking at parts, say over there on the mill or the lathe. This lighting does a fantastic job of lighting up this shop. Other people have made comments that it's like an operating room in here, and this video doesn't really do it justice. It is pretty darn bright. But I just thought I would point out investing in some good lights is the way to go, as well as put outlets in your workshop. If you have the ability to do electrical work, drop you some outlets in lots of locations, because it seems like no matter what, you're always running out of outlet space. It'd be worth paying someone to throw you a bunch of outlets. As you can see, I have those expanding things on there, and most of them are pretty darn full. And I put a bunch of outlets in here whenever I wired this up, and there's many times that I wish there was a bunch more. So just thought I would point that out. Lighting and electrical is definitely something very, very worthy of looking into. Well, that pretty well sums up the workshop tour here in my little home machine shop. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Lots more to come. I have a lot of really fun and exciting things to show you guys. This was just a small glimpse into the reality that I live in, and I'm fortunate enough to have. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Drop down in the comments what you'd like to see. If you want to see more about something that I've done, you want to see more about a machine that I have, or if you'd love to see me make something, by all means, drop it in the comments. See what I can do to make that work. And as always, hopefully you enjoyed this, and until the next video, have a great night.